Well, good afternoon and welcome to our webinar. And I'm going to ask our speakers and presenters to please unmute and turn on their video and unmute themselves when it's time to speak. And of course, my dog decided to start barking right now. He's been quiet the whole morning, but welcome to everybody and welcome to the webinar. Before I pass it over to our host, to Nina Roque, wanted to do some housekeeping so that everybody is aware. If you have any Q&A questions, please do go to your icon that says Q&A, and there you can write your questions and answers, and we'll do our best to be able to answer the questions as soon as either we're presenting or at the end when we're having the questions and answers. And also our wonderful moderator, Miss Pamela Prince, will be doing some polls, and so she will ask you to please answer a question. You'll be able to answer is at that moment, and then we'll see the results, and this will help us also to add more value to the conversation for Loretta and I. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nina, and thank you.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you, UPS, for hosting us today for this webinar Wednesday with the National Women's Business Council. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today, and good afternoon. My name is Nina Roque. I'm the Executive Director of the National Women's Business Council, and I'm very excited to be joined by our council member, Pam Prince-Eason. She is the President and CEO of WeBank, the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. We also have two amazing speakers, Maria Luisa Boyce. She is the Vice President of Global Affairs for UPS. And we have Loretta Greene, who is the new Associate Administrator for the Office of International Trade at the U.S. Small Business Administration. So thank you all so much for your collaboration and for joining us here today. It's really going to be a great conversation. Our speakers will explore both from the private and the public sector perspective, really what are opportunities for women entrepreneurs in trade amidst, of course, this global pandemic and in light of the recent enactment of the USMCA. We really hope that we can discuss how small businesses can leverage both public and private sector resources, tools, and programs to pivot their business models and grow and scale their enterprises through exporting, digital trade, and e-commerce. If you're joining us here today for the first time, I'd like to take a minute to tell you a little bit about the National Women's Business Council. For those of you who don't know, we are a nonpartisan, independent federal advisory committee. We were established by statute, the Women's Business Ownership Act in 1988, for the purpose of providing advice and policy recommendations to the President, Congress, and the U.S. Small Business Administration. So the council is comprised of 15 women business owners and entrepreneurs from across the country representing diverse business sectors. We have 6 representatives of national women's business organizations, of course, including WeBank. And we also have 8 small business owners from across the country. We have 1 presidentially appointed chair. I'd like to take this opportunity to highlight 2 of our council members very briefly. So one of them is Mary Grace Sexton. She's the founder and CEO of Natalie's Orchard Island Juice Company, which is a clean label juice products company. And she actually exports 25 flavors to 49 countries and over 5,000 US and international supermarkets. I'd also like to take this opportunity to highlight Rebecca Hamilton, who's the co-CEO of WS Badger Inc., which is a certified and all-natural body and skincare line. She was actually SBA's 2014 Exporter of the Year. She participated in the SBA STEP program, which assisted her with market research and compliance with some EU regulatory reform regarding the skincare industry. While pre-pandemic estimates reveal that there are about 13 million women business owners, only about 12 million of them export. The upshot is that women-owned firms that do export not only earn more, but employ more and are on average more productive than women-owned firms that do not. So we see this as a significant opportunity, and that's why we're so excited about today's conversation. With the recent passage of the USMCA trade agreement, it will make it easier for businesses to sell their products to consumers in Canada and Mexico. So I'm excited to get this conversation started. You can follow us along on Twitter at NWBC using the hashtag Webinar Wednesdays. I'd like to introduce Pam Prince-Eason. Like I mentioned, she's the president and CEO of WeBank. She's serving her second term on the council, and she is a very valuable member of the Access to Capital and Opportunity subcommittee here on the council. So Pam, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Nina. It is a tremendous honor to be here with everyone. And Nina, thank you for the great work that you and your team are always doing with the National Women's Business Council. We're very fortunate to have you in this role. So good afternoon, everyone. And for those of you, it might still be morning, good morning. We're happy to have you at today's webinar discussion. As the president and CEO of WeBank, as well as you heard, a member of the National Women's Business Council, I'm actually delighted to join this conversation today about emerging opportunities for women entrepreneurs in international trade. I spend the vast majority of my time at WeBank focused on what's happening inside the U.S. borders. And I'm picking up Maria, I'm picking up some feedback. Is that from me or someone else? Okay, I'm going to keep going then. And so I'm excited to have UPS share their expertise as well as what you're going to hear from Loretta. WeBank, as you may know, is a nonprofit organization that supports the certification and growth of women-owned businesses. And it's our goal to create economic impact and to be a resource for women-owned businesses in growing and being successful in growing your businesses. So it's my great honor to be here to talk with you. I am also very excited to hear from the two powerhouse women you're going to hear from today, Maria Luisa Boyce, who you've heard from a little bit today, as well as who is Vice President of Global Public Affairs at UPS, and then Loretta Greene, who was also mentioned earlier, the Associate Administrator, Office of International Trade with the U.S. Small Business Administration. WeBank in our role works with both of these organizations. UPS is very strong in their work with WeBank and in their leadership of how to grow small business and to provide opportunity. And we are the largest third-party certifier of women-owned small businesses for the SBA. And so thank you, Loretta, for those claps. I'm glad to be here partnered with both of these women. They're both going to share with you public and private sector perspectives on emerging opportunities for women entrepreneurs in exporting, in digital trade, and e-commerce within the framework of this pandemic. They will also share specific programs at both the SBA and at UPS that support women entrepreneurs who are interested in opportunities to grow and expand their enterprises. Given the recent implementation of the United States, Mexico, Canada agreement, this conversation could not come at a better time. Again, I really look forward to hearing more from both Maria Luisa and Loretta on emerging opportunities for women entrepreneurs in international trade. So let's get started. Remember,
if I may, can we launch the poll?
Oh, yes, I'm so sorry, Maria.
No worries, no.
So we have a short poll we'd like for you to take. And so, Maria, if you're going to go ahead and release that, could you first share with us if you are currently someone who exports? And then once you've answered whether you do or you don't, so yes, I export or no, I don't, we'd like for you to then consider the second question, which is what has been the major impact during COVID for your business? And so as an exporter or not as an exporter, is cash flow your biggest issue? Is loss of employees or this stop work part of the issue? Do you have no online customers, or is it loss of supply? And so if each of you would take the opportunity to vote, we'll give you about probably 20 more seconds. Maria will monitor the voting that's coming in. And then Maria, I'll let you share what you'd like to from the poll results.
Thank you so much, Pam, and it's exciting to be able to gather this information. And so we're gonna finish the polling right now. I think we have the information, and here are the results. 91% of the respondents responded that they're not currently exporting, and definitely cash flow has been the major impact from COVID-19 on the businesses. No online customers, and loss of employees, lockdown, and loss of suppliers. So thank you so much for those of you that responded. Pam, back to you.
Well, the good news about the fact that 91% of people don't export is they can learn a lot here today. And hopefully, if we were surveying this again in 6 months, we would find more people exporting. So that would be really fabulous.
Yes, and I'm thinking we should have a question at the end of the presentation. Would you consider now exporting, right?
I like that. I like that a lot. I think that would be good. You really couldn't have two better women than to share the information with you today. So I'm going to get you started on that. We know that the pandemic has affected women and other minorities in economically disadvantaged communities the hardest. That's really why we have calls such as this to share information. Last month, the National Bureau of Economic Research published a working paper that utilized data from the U.S. Census Bureau and the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics to compare small business ownership between February of this year and April of this year. The research revealed, and I think, Nina, you covered some of this in the beginning, that female-owned businesses experienced a 25% drop since the pandemic. Pre-pandemic estimates showed that of what was 13 million women-owned small businesses, only about 12% of them exported. So kind of low numbers like we just saw in the poll that we're taking. So how has the pandemic highlighted inequities between male and female businesses as it relates to exporting? And then we'll of course want to know, how has that gotten better? So let me first take our first question to our panelists. And let's see, Loretta, let me go to you first on this. How has the pandemic highlighted inequities between male and women-owned businesses as it relates to exporting?
Well, this is more of just an umbrella comment I'm going to give first.
Okay.
And that is, while both male and female are dealing with childcare, we know that the burden of the childcare falls on the women in homes. And so that is a tremendous challenge that I know every household is facing, but we as women, that is something we're trying to make sure that our children are taken care of, and that it's a struggle right now because there's so many variables, and we don't even know when. Every time a county, a governor makes a decision, then we don't know how that's going to impact the school system. And even here in Washington, many of our of the child care is wrapped into some of the government buildings, right? So HHS, HUD, energy. So that's all gone. It's shut down. So I'm very fortunate that I don't have little ones right now, but mine are like out of grade school, high school. They have struggles and feelings of isolation. So I think that is really one of the main sources of challenges that we as women have to be having a discussion on. Maybe we would have a broader discussion at some point, Nina. This will be a whole topic that we look at later. But so I see that is really, we have to take a holistic approach on how are we looking at the struggles of our children right now. And then the next one is the cash flow, all right? And the struggles of what your cash flow is. And I'm so, when I saw that, the poll, which I think that is so cool that we're doing this great interaction right now. But what I see from that is, while there's such a low number of women that are exporting right now, and then the challenges of the cash flow, what I see is we can turn that around for opportunity, because that means that women on this call, you have an opportunity as we go further into this discussion on how SBA can help you and have a vision. So I'm going to turn it over to Maria, but then we're going to just stay at this, okay?
I'm the host and I'm unmuting myself.
I wanted Maria to comment.
Maria, did you want to comment on that, or do you want us to move along?
No, let's move along, and I will share a little bit, maybe just to comment briefly on that piece. What we are seeing, so UPS has presence over 220 countries and territories, and we move on a daily basis, 3% of the world's GDP and 6% of the country's GDP in our network. And I share that because that has given us very interesting insight, right, of what we're seeing, the impact of what we're working on. And I think, Loretta, definitely we have seen the impact globally, and here in the US, the impact on childcare and taking care of our elderly too, because that has been an impact on that part. And we also have seen that the challenges that we that for women entrepreneurs in many parts of the world and here in the country too, in terms of being able to have the right skill set to adapt to the changes that that COVID-19 has brought, right? Either digital trade skill sets or understanding if you're selling or in services. Many women are in services industries. Those industries have been the highest impacted, right? The tourism, restaurants, etc. And so having to adapt to how do you now deal with this challenges that I have seen has been a big impact on women entrepreneurs. So definitely I will add that part, but let's continue, Pam.
Okay, that sounds great. So I agree that this issue with childcare and whether schools are going to return, definitely a huge issue. And I know that Nina will take that back to the team for us to take a look at. And I love how you transitioned, Loretta, into the topic of cash flow. And that's exactly what our poll showed here, that cash flow was really such a significant issue. So many of our women-owned small businesses were able to keep their employees on payroll and kind of keep their businesses afloat thanks to the payroll protection program that SBA was such a huge part of making sure we had access to. So PPP, for those who love that terminology, many of those businesses were able to shift or pivot their business models to meet kind of online digital demands of a COVID-19 economy. So in some ways, that help of the cash flow in order to keep businesses afloat allowed for kind of something good to come out of COVID-19, which is the fact that with some of the more limited travel, people were better able to communicate in platforms such as what we're doing here today with Zoom. So there were some potential new business opportunities. And so where we are seeing some things that are much more difficult, we are picking up a little bit of a benefit from COVID-19 from that standpoint. But as it goes to talking about PPP, I'd love to have both of you kind of comment specifically on what you've seen around pivots since PPP's gone in place. I know we ran at WeBank a very specific pitch competition that was for women who had pivoted their businesses and were no longer doing what they were doing pre-COVID. And it was amazing. We had over 200 women-owned businesses that had truly gone from something totally unrelated to what they were doing in January and February to what they now see as the vision for their business during this COVID pandemic. And so I'd love to know from the higher perspective that both of you are at, what kind of pivot you've seen. And then I would invite all of you who are on this call to place in the chat some of the pivots you may have done that we can be looking at as we talk with you about the things that we're very aware of. And so Maria, Luisa, you have suppliers, I'm sure, that have had to pick up and do even more work with you that is your normal UPS work, but you've probably been through some pivots as well. So could you talk with us a bit about that?
So yeah, maybe I'll come from the perspective of, so UPS as a logistics company, we're an enabler of businesses to be able to connect with customers, right? So I know, Pam, you're coming from the supplier perspective, which is also who supplies to us, but also the customers that we enable, that are businesses that sell, etc. I think we have seen three major points that I would like to highlight. One, which I was it was very interesting to see that women entrepreneurs have taken the time to do more training, more capacity building in the skill sets that they realize are needed. And and this is true not only of women entrepreneurs, but small businesses in general. To give a little bit of a statistic, our usual webinars used to be maybe 200, 300 people that were registered. Once we started doing a series of COVID webinars for small businesses to provide training, went up to 14,000 people registered. And that's a huge change from 1 month to another, right?
Yeah.
And so that was just one number that we saw here in the U.S. and globally. I am blessed to lead from a public affairs perspective our Women Exporter program globally, and we have a partnership with the International Trade Center in Geneva on a She Trades program that they do. And women entrepreneurs were signing up. They also saw an increase of almost double percentage, so 200% growth in women participating to do webinars. So capacity building, very specific technical training that women have asked. And so I think I would put that, Pam, as a category of pivoting and innovation. The second thing, I think that we are seeing the challenge of the cash flow and the revenue generation, definitely a big hit. And we what we started to see was questions from more of our business, of our customers, in terms of how to change and adapt their supply chain process. Many small businesses, and I put under there all the women-owned businesses too, were not as much selling business to consumer directly, but more business to business. And then the other business was selling. So this shift caused for them to start doing more business to consumer. And so they really needed to adapt and change how they looked at their supply chain process on that piece. And in a survey that we were doing with businesses, one of the four key areas that they were impacted was access to their suppliers. If they were a business that sells something that was disrupted. So I think that shift, that innovation and pivot, we started to see how they adapted to now going directly to the consumers. And I will say for service industries, because we may have a lot of service companies here in the call, is how to adapt to the different, you had the government requirements in terms of if in cities or states that you couldn't leave, how to adapt to how to interact with your customers and reassess that piece. And then the last one that we saw is the in many instances, some women entrepreneurs, and I will say we're seeing it globally and here too, they were part of the informal economy and not part of the formal economy. And so access to cash flow was very was hard. In some countries we see it harder to happen. Here we did see, very interesting, once we started seeing, for example, the PPP go more to local banking or credit unions, women were able to access, or small businesses were able to access more that cash flow. But to other businesses, the challenge, if you're part of the informal economy, sometimes you don't have access to that financial infrastructure, right? If you're going to receive, and now added to that you're online, you have to receive payments via credit card, you need to have a bank account to get those payments. All of those things start adding up. So I think those were the three things that we saw, and we saw a shift of innovation, to your point, the power of the positive, right? How to pivot and adapt to find solutions.
That's excellent, Maria Luisa. You couldn't have done a better job explaining that. Loretta, you want to share a little bit from your perspective?
All right. So from my perspective is I am just so happy that everybody that can is being part of our PPP program. I really believe it is giving the lifeblood of survival to businesses right now. And what I want to tell the participants on this call is, if you haven't applied for PPP or you thought that you could not get it, I encourage you to go and recheck, because we are always, I think we're in the third area or the third phase, and there's been adjustments made. So maybe in the first go round they said no, but maybe they've made adjustments or changing. As Maria says, hey, we're evolving. Even SBA is evolving. We're trying to be aware of what your needs are. So, I would encourage that. Or see if there's an SBA office. Go online to SBA. Find if there's a local office. Because even though our centers aren't open, all of our phone lines are open. You'll be sent to a voicemail, or somebody will answer it, because maybe that phone line is being forwarded to a person that is going to have their virtual offices at home. So I'm just saying that SBA is up and running, and try to make a phone call and readdress something if you thought that you weren't qualified. Okay, so I'm encouraging everyone on the phone, that's participating, to check into that. Then also think about how you are going global and e-commerce. At one point there's a slide, I don't know I don't know at what point, because I know we would be conversational, but I know that I have a slide goes into how there's grant monies that go to the states. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and go right at this.
Perfect.
This is exactly what you need to be thinking about. We no longer have highways. We don't have the airports. We don't have the trade shows. So you have to now thinking, what is your highway? The highway for you right now is your website. It is e-commerce. So through the states and the territories, they're giving out grant money. And with that grant money then can go to small businesses, and 90% you're going to be able to qualify for a grant to pay for website fees, sell overseas, translate your websites into foreign languages, to have search engine optimization, to localize or internationalize your website specific to your overseas market, design marketing media, including digital marketing media, participate in virtual missions, obtain market research and initial market checks to determine opportunities, also attend training workshops that are virtual. So I'm just saying that's another thing. When you hang up the phone, go to sba.gov/international. Find out if your state territory is participating in the STEP programs. And hey, everybody is. There's different phases. So there is money out there. And what we've done is, because normally in the past, these STEP funds have been used for small businesses to go on trade missions. And that's one part of the allocation, but that's being used, right? So what we are doing is we're evolving also, say, then let's use those funds. And so we've increased funds for the websites, for the translations. I was actually on a call with the Oklahoma governor's office with their trade, they have an international trade committee. And I was on it yesterday, and I was just listening. They're doing other business, but they were talking about how they were doing a virtual trade mission with Brazil. And so what they were doing is they were sending over all these packets in advance of samples, and it was food products to maybe be sold over there. And so then they were going to, have this virtual trade mission on food opportunities, and they'd have the food shipped over there. Then they could have conversation about what they liked, didn't like, or what they thought might sell. Right? So we have upped your shipping capabilities, right? So Maria, I don't know if you that, but we
Oh, I think we had a Loretta's sound has been, or video has been frozen. Maybe if I may compliment Pam on what Loretta is talking about while her connection works again.
That sounds great.
Yes, so I think we have one of the areas that we see of opportunities of exporting is why we started a program, our Women Exporter program. And I'm gonna move forward here on the slides one moment at this piece to share with the I'm talking the USMCA here, but one of the areas that we identified as a very important a priority and we saw as a business in 2018 was that investing in women-owned businesses was not only, yes, the right thing to do, but it was the smart thing to do. And we saw it because we understood the importance of investing. And you and Nina mentioned some of the statistics in terms of investing, capacity building on how to export, etc. And what we identified as an opportunity in terms of the numbers is how do we focus on working with women entrepreneurs around the globe, in the United States and around the globe, and make them the most successful and enable them to be able to succeed in connecting to international trade. And so we addressed three areas of focus. One was the capacity building that I mentioned. And that one, I think something as women entrepreneurs, we see is that the thirst for knowledge. And women entrepreneurs are very innovative and looking always for that information. And we identified, okay, we did a survey around the globe in terms of what were the knowledge gaps that were needed and develop a capacity building on how to export, e-commerce, etc. We also understood that it was important not only to do that, the training of the capacity, but also how to access the markets, because you can study and train a lot, but if you don't do, then your knowledge doesn't go anywhere. So we were able to launch a pilot in Nigeria with 80 women entrepreneurs, but we're also doing helping facilitate here in the States. Of course, our team, we have a great SMB program and for women entrepreneurs to help them. What are the best products, or take advantage of what trade agreements do we have? How do you look at the customers that you can sell aboard? And then the last piece that is also something that I'm a policy nerd, I will say it out loud, and a trade nerd, is also looking at the regulatory framework and how do we enable women through regulations to make certain that they have the opportunity to connect and to the governments to understand how can they best enable women entrepreneurship around the globe. So those were the three areas that we were focusing on, and we started in 2018. In 2019, I have here what we accomplished, which is very exciting. We did 3 workshops here in the US. Here in the US, we have, of course, a strong presence, and we partner with you, Pam. That's where we launched our Women Exporter program in your event in July. And we're doing workshops and capacity building and partnering a lot with SBA, which has great resources. I think Loretta was mentioning this, the resources that SBA have. I don't think a lot of women entrepreneurs know about it. The training, the grants, the insurance that you guys provide for exporting is amazing. And we also partner with the Department of Commerce Commercial Services, who does also an amazing job. And so that's how we are looking at the entrepreneurship and work that we do. We're part of several efforts. We're part of the WGDP, of the Women's Global Development Prosperity Initiative. We're in partnership with ITC She Trades in Geneva. We're in partnership with the World Bank. And so that's part of, I think, the importance of women entrepreneurship in that respect. I'm going to stop there, Pam, because I think you had other questions. I know we wanted to talk about USMCA, and I'm going to check if Loretta is back.
I do think we have her back.
Oh, perfect.
So Loretta, would you like for us to go back to your slides so you can finish up on that, or do you want me to move on to discussion on the United States, Mexico, Canada agreement? I think you're muted right now.
Let me unmute. So I love how we adapt and improvise, right? And on this piece. Loretta, I think, can you hear us? I think
like she can hear us.
I don't, yeah. Loretta, we cannot hear you. Okay, She's connecting.
Well, a couple of
All
things
right,
I'll say
here.
in summary.
I'm back.
Oh, okay, great.
Let's do it. Okay. All right. So I just let you know. Okay. So are you going to do this one? Or are you going to go back to
I'll go back
next?
to the one you had.
Yes. All right. So so what I'm saying is that you want to take advantage of your state or territory's opportunities, and it's through the economic offices of the governor's office that have these grant money that are available to you so that you can build your websites. That's your highway right now. And that's going to make you more robust and have the abilities to get to markets that you need to. Right, Maria?
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So that's that. We can go to the next slide.
Yep.
Okay, here's another opportunity. Talk about cash flow. That is the biggest hurdle that everyone is up against right now. So here at SBA, we have these 3 loans that are available to you. So what you need to be thinking about is what product or service do you have to think that you can export on, because the Export Express is for business development up to a $500,000 limit. So be thinking and see if you would qualify, because this is business development, right? Then the next one is export working capital to fulfill your international and supply chain orders. So what if you've already got your foot in the water and you're doing some exporting? Well, this is a $5 million limit for you to go, right? And then we have the international trade loan for expanding your production capacity, refinancing debt, and reshoring. So let me just tell you a little bit about reshoring. Reshoring is when you bring back manufacturing back to the United States. So maybe you've been partnering with somebody, or you've been getting your supplies from outside the United States. Be thinking of how can you be manufacturing back in the United States, and and it's very important, right? Because we've seen the vulnerabilities for supplies because of COVID, right? And for health devices, for pharmaceuticals. So be thinking about how's that going to make America stronger by you being part of this opportunity to bring manufacturing back to the United States. So I just want everyone on this call to be thinking about that, because that's very critical to the strength of our economy right now. Okay. Here is an email, international@sba.gov. If you email that, we have staff here in the Office of International Trade, and they'll connect you. If you're in San Francisco and you want to talk to somebody about one of these opportunities, they'll put you in touch. So right now on this call, look at that, international@sba.gov. If you have a question, you want to be connected, please email today. Okay. All right.
This is why we needed the question afterwards. Are you ready to export, right? We're giving a pep talk about exporting. I do want to say, Loretta, maybe to complement what you're saying and what you were going to the participants, there's a lot of information. In my prior life, I used to work with U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and I was the small business ombudsman for the agency. And one of the things that I learned when I was with the agency for small businesses and probably that are joining us here, it was how hard it was for them to get information, because we have 15,000 pages in a web page, right? That was for example, at Customs, and I was responsible for also interacting with all private sector and industry on imports and exports. And one of the biggest challenges small businesses told us is, I don't have the time to sit down and go through web pages and find out where and how. And so this type of contact information, I do say is very important. And of course, I have to do the sales pitch. Work with us, and we'll help you through the process. But it is very important for businesses to know where to go and have a framework of mind. Take the time to do your homework of where you want to export or what do you want to do, and then you'll have the better questions on how to help you in that piece. Pam, back to you.
I'm glad you brought that up, Maria, because you could, let's just say you thought that you wanted to export something to Brazil, but we have these incredible expert finance managers around the country, and it's broken down by regions. So they will have a conversation with you. They know their research. They know what's viable in these countries, in these markets. So tap into that, okay? And if, you know, that's what they're there for, to help you. And they know their regions, and then they know the international scene for marketing. So I'm just encouraging you to tap into SBA and resources.
Yeah, it's very true that there's a lot of this that the normal woman business owner is unaware of that SBA has. And I think the sharing of this knowledge is so super important. And as always been my experience with UPS, you guys are the leading edge of understanding how to get things in and out of the country, and exactly which countries are successful entrants for us. And so we appreciate the support you give us, especially at WeBank and the National Women's Business Council, where you're helping us to know where we should, as women-owned businesses, target to be successful. So both of you are just giving us tremendous input on what to do here. Does anybody want to add anything more on pivoting before I move on to a bit more on the United States, Mexico, Canada agreement?
I think we're good, Pam. Let's move on.
Okay, I thought that was the case. I just wanted to double check in case there was a slide that someone was supposed to cover. I wanted to make sure. And so I will add that in the chat, it's been shared with us that, remember, when we're in Canada, we probably shouldn't refer to this as the USDA because they actually refer to it quite differently. And so
as CUSMA, the Canada, US, Mexico, and in Mexico is TEMEC. El Tratado México-Canadá, yes.
Exactly. So I just thought I would throw that in because that's been shared with us, and it's always helpful for everyone on the call to hear those sorts of things. And so, Loretta, you've shared quite a bit of information that small business owners need to know and to understand during these times. Was there anything additional specific to the U.S.-Mexico Canada agreement that you wanted to also cover, or is this the appropriate information for that?
Well, get on this slide for a minute, but you know, Canada and Mexico are our largest trading partners. So everyone on this call, be thinking, they're our closest neighbors. It's easiest to start with your neighbors for selling points, and then you can take it the next area, or you can pivot beyond that. So here we have this new free trade agreement. And for the first time, we had SBA negotiators. It was part of the free trade agreements to have our negotiators in the room. And that's very big breakthrough for small business to have this. And we had excellent lady and it was a woman. So how great is that? Yes. And she was out there at the table, and if she heard them talking about something, she'd say, wait. She had the ability to say, no, we need to rethink that. That's going to put some hardships on small business. So we were so fortunate to have a negotiator that was also a woman.
Yes,
right.
and
so, keep going.
No, and Loretta, I was going to compliment. This is to Loretta's point. This is from UPS. We put together this slide on USMCA because we want to tell you some of the areas that we found fascinating. And I love what Loretta is mentioning, because this trade agreement, to put into perspective, when NAFTA passed in the 90s. Small businesses were mentioned in an annex in a paragraph. That was the whole mentioning of small businesses. In USMCA, there's a whole chapter dedicated to small businesses, chapter 25, but it goes farther into that, to Loretta's point, having a negotiator, because we saw in that throughout the whole agreement, there's the recognition of asking the governments to take into consideration small businesses, so make it easier, make it easy for access of information, and that small businesses can comply, because there was that recognition that small businesses represent a very important part of our economy. And then to put on top of that, now since we're talking here with women entrepreneurs, chapter 25 has a specific language highlighting the importance of that governments should support women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, rural-owned businesses, small businesses. This is very important, and I can tell you that of course there's other agreements. Canada has agreement with Chile and other agreements that they also mention women-owned businesses and small businesses, but this one is very thoughtful and thorough in terms of the small business opportunity. So definitely something. Sorry, Loretta, I jump in there, but to complement on that perspective, and then I'll talk more a little bit about the other areas if you're an exporter that you can take advantage of. To last point on Loretta piece, 80%. So for our small businesses that export, 80% of their market destination is Mexico and Canada. So definitely there's an opportunity in there for us to take advantage of the agreement. But there's more to do, and of course the sky is the limit, right, in terms of how to export. And I think, Loretta, you're right, is getting your feet wet. Now if you're thinking about e-commerce, right, first domestic, then export to your neighbors, to Canada and Mexico, where you have a market that knows you well, and then you can expand also to other parts of the globe.
Yes. Another thing, so here I'm new to this, but as I am learning the different mechanisms within SBA, and Nina, you and I just need to keep working on how we engage and come up with new ideas for these great webinars that you're doing, is there's these big deals that are going on, and how can the small businesses play a role in that, right? And so I hope to be exploring that also, because then that's an opportunity for the small businesses to kind of pivot onto a bigger deal, right? And then they can grow there, right? So it's kind of like, I don't know, I'm not sure mentoring is quite the right word within the exporting world, but I'm seeing how I can look into something like that.
That sounds really great, Loretta. I know Nina is constantly talking about the positive resources that exist at SBA as we're either on other seminars or if we're participating in our work as the National Women's Business Council. So she's really got her hands on the pulse of some of those connections that need to exist out there. And if we can just get your fabulous resources to these women-owned businesses, I think we can really see that economic impact that we all know could be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And another thing, like on the screen right now, they talk about intellectual properties. That is something that we're also looking at to be more helpful with exporters, because that can be so costly. So here you have a product and you don't want to lose control of it when you go to export it. And so we are well aware, and there's discussions going on right now. How can we be more supportive within the intellectual property world and raise is the money to help small businesses navigate Department of Commerce, the Trade and Patent Office better.
So in if I may on that, Pam, so for the businesses, and I know we're getting some questions, and please remember to put your questions on the Q&A too. I know you're putting a lot of information on the chat. I think the to Loretta's point, the intellectual property information and language is very important, and that is something that as a small business, you might not think that it makes a big deal, but when you're exporting and moving goods, you're also moving data with those goods, and it's important for you to be able to protect it and have the data be able to keep it in close to you, etc. And that's something that this agreement also brings very important. It includes a new chapter on digital trade, because of course when NAFTA came, digital trade was a thought maybe, but not existent. And now it's the reality of what we face. The movement of goods and the volume has grown and has gone faster, and we can totally see it too increasing during the pandemic, COVID-19. We have seen a huge increase on e-commerce. And so having digital trade as part of the agreement is important, and for business purposes, for you to be aware of what are the liabilities that you have and that you're able to protect yourself from that piece. The other element that was important, this is my trade nerdiness, is chapter 7, which is on customs on trade facilitation. And I call it trade nerdiness because it's a good read. You have nothing to do between 12 and 1 a.m. and you want to fall asleep. But it's an agreement. It's a chapter. It's chapter 7, and it really is important for small businesses because it codifies and puts in practice trade facilitation policies that we have been advocating for in the trade industry for many years, and makes it less costly for businesses to export and import. And so as you are thinking about it, why does it mean to me, or why does it matter? That's why that part of the agreement is very important, and it provides more access for you on that. And then the last one on the top corner, you probably may be asking, what is de minimis, right? what does that mean? And so just for us, de minimis is when you can export or when you import something export something to a country and you don't have to pay duties or taxes. And so, for example, if Canada raised their de minimis level, and so they have duty-free up to 150 Canadian dollars, but duty and tax-free up to $40. So they move from 20 to 40, which is a big improvement. So what does that mean? If you're selling products and you want to be competitive on the price in the country that you're going, that makes it easier for you. So this is, I know I'm getting into the trade nerdiness here, but it's important for our women entrepreneurs to be aware of it and look at the opportunities that might exist.
Maria Luisa, you are definitely not a trade nerd. I consider you a trade expert. So keep those figures coming.
No, a trade diva.
Yeah, exactly. Diva. I even like that better, is wonderful. So this has just been truly, truly amazing information. And people in the chat are agreeing that you're the trade diva, Maria Luisa. So just so you know, clearly you are. I wanted to comment that the Exim Bank has been on with us today as well. And there's a number of resources available through the Exim Bank. So I just want to make you aware of those. We're getting near the end of our time where I'm going to need to turn it over to Nina. I just wanted to give each of you wonderful ladies just a few more minutes to close out on the items that you still had to cover with us. So Maria Luisa, let me go to you first.
No, for me, it's really an honor and a pleasure to be here. I believe in the power of the positive and the power of women entrepreneurship. For those of you that have been impacted by the pandemic, please know that you're not alone. We are part of a community here, and we're all supporting each other. Let it be it not only UPS but many companies, and also in partnering with the National Women's Business Council, with the Small Business Administration, with the Department of Commerce, with Exim Bank. They're amazing agencies that do a lot of work. With WeBank, we are on the board, and shout out to Chris if she's listening to us. But so I think it's important to know you're part of a community. There are resources available. It's hard. I'm not gonna say that it has not been tough, and recognizing the challenges. I mean, we saw the response on the cash flow, but we also I do wanna bring some hope, because we are seeing trade moving. We are seeing moving through our network, and so it is, even though there's still some challenges. Someone was presenting in the questions about the challenges of if everything is still in lockdown in your state or in your city. Definitely that presents a challenge. It's an opportunity for you to pivot and see how do you either turn your product on, if it is a product, how do you sell it electronically. And I know we maybe did not have time to answer all the questions, but please know that we are going to provide a follow-up. We'll coordinate with Nina, be able to answer the questions, and this applies to distributors and manufacturers, to everybody. There is opportunity. So I think that I will close with that, Pam, and provide you're part of the network of a family. You're not alone, and there's opportunities and information.
Wonderful. Loretta?
Well, in closing, really for me, if the women on this call, if you pick up the phone, you send an email today, that is part of your steps to success. So you have to connect with SBA. We have so many different opportunities, and go on our website. Just that is your first step to expanding or growing. So that's really what I want to say is please utilize SBA. We're here for you.
Ladies, in this time where everyone is receiving what seems like bad news almost every day, the knowledge that you've imparted here and the way in which you've shared it and you've been specific about where we can go to find more information, I personally can't thank you enough. I talk to business owners, many business owners every day, and this is an exciting space to look at where we can potentially expand some opportunity for our women-owned business. It will create real economic value for those businesses and for us here in the United States, and tremendous impact obviously in wherever these products and services are going. We will obviously remember our partner UPS as we're getting those goods in and out of the country. And Nina, just again, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this and to work with these two wonderful women. This is yet another great subject that you and the National Women's Business Council have brought forward, and I'm very thankful to be able to be a part of that.
Thank you, Pam, and thank you so much, Maria Luisa and Loretta, for joining us. Loretta, you did great in your first webinar. Glad you was able to be on the National Women's Business Council. As many of you know who have been participating on this webinar series, the conversation definitely will not end today. We will send follow-up emails. I know the chat's going crazy with everyone asking. We will absolutely send all of this information via follow-up email. There was such great information from all three of you, so we'll make sure to link everything there. Our next webinar will be on August 19th, and we will continue the conversation on opportunities within the midst of this current pandemic, and really what are some positives that can come out of this, how you can pivot and grow your business. So thank you again to our fabulous speakers. Keep up with the National Women's Business Council, nwbc.gov. We're on Twitter and LinkedIn. And thank you again for joining. Have a great day.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Stay safe.